Hello everyone, and a warm welcome. I think let's start with something familiar. On the roads of Mumbai, my favorite city, when we see drivers on the road, they do not usually roll down their windows to speak. They simply use hand gestures to show that they want to take a U-turn, they want you to move ahead, or they want you to stop, and everybody simply understands. In a noisy classroom, the teacher does not always raise her voice. Sometimes she goes like, tick, 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 and the classroom goes silent. In a restaurant, when you want to pay a bill, you don't shout across the room. You simply sign something into the air, and the waiter understands. So let me ask you something. What's the universal sign for I don't know? A shrug, yes. And what's the universal sign for that you're actually listening to me right now? A nod. And pretty much all of you are nodding at me right now, so thank you for the validation, everybody. This is exactly where my talk begins. Without exchanging a lot of words, we have already communicated a lot. So here you go, why words aren't enough and how Bharatanatyam proves it. Rukmini Devi Arundel, a Bharatanatyam revivalist, said that Bharatanatyam is not merely a dance. It's a way of life. Now let me tell you what this means to me. For me, communication wasn't something that was just focused on words. It wasn't something back in school that I was extremely confident that I had words to express what I felt. My presence did not always come with a voice. Definitely not like that crying baby that you encounter in an airplane. But then I had something, and what was that? That was dance. Back in school, very unusual for our school, instead of just picking known dancers, they decided to audition. I was extremely excited, just happy that I could get a chance to show something that I really love. On the day of audition, I remember that I was walking into the hall and I saw that it wasn't our principals or our teachers who were auditioning us, it was our very own classmates. I remember thinking that this changes everything. But yet, I got selected. I was in this inter-school dance group. I was going to perform live. And in that moment, it felt like something is about to change. But eventually, when we were paired up with our classmates, my partner very openly said that I'm not comfortable dancing with her. I was hurt. I was angry. I was embarrassed. But I let it pass. Next day, when everybody was being called for practice again, I watched as names were being called out. Mine wasn't. I was again very angry. I did not protest. I did not cry. I did not even ask why. And that made me realize very clearly and quietly that I do have expressions. I just don't have the voice for it yet. But eventually, this story is not something that I want to rant about. It's not something that I would want you to understand. This is what I lacked in. But I am here to tell you what exactly changed. And that's when Bharatanatyam entered my life. As I move forward in my years, I realized that it's not just expressions or it's not just movement that made me what I am today. When I stand before you on this stage, I realize that it is through the art form, very minutely, I have put in a lot of effort to change every minute bit. So let's understand where all this started from. Let's come to something called as the very first Natya Shastra. When we talk about Natya Shastra, it embodies the emotion of Bharatanatyam. Bharatanatyam wasn't written just as an art manual. It was written to make human expression visible. It wasn't just created to look beautiful. It was created to make meaning visible. Sage Bharata in the Natya Shastra says, Vibhava Anubhava Vyabhikari Bhava. Vibhava is the cause, the sight of Lord, of an Indian Lord. The Anubhava is the reaction to it. Softened eyes, a gentle smile, and my body leaning forward. Vyabhikari Bhava is the mental and emotional state. It could be fear. It could be happiness, it could be love, it could be shame. This taught me that it's okay to express what you feel and that emotions are pretty normal. Now, coming eventually to understanding that emotions are not enough, or expressions are just not enough. Emotion needs a container. And with so much of emotion in me, I needed something that would ground me, something that would enhance my ability to stand in a correct body posture, that would enhance my strength in movement, that would give some trust to my body, that would align my body in a certain way. And that is when the first layer of Bharatanatyam comes in, the Nritya. The Nritya has something called as the Adavus. Now, Adavus are pure movement. They focus on precision, they focus on alignment and control. Let me show you how. Tari kitta tom, tari kitta tom, tai, tari kitta tom, tai, tari kitta tom. Now there are hundreds of adavus right there. When you mix and match a few adavus, you get to understand that there is something called as a jati. Talam kuchum, tadiginatom, tadana tandana, tadhimi dhim dhimi, tatom dana kita takata jum tari dhim tadhim. Now, what made me this understand is basically that Bharatanatyam enhances your body posture, your stage presence, and your use of space. Everything that a public speaker needs, correct? Now, moving on, we have Bruce Lee, who also said that I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 steps once or 10,000 kicks once, but the man who practiced one kick 10,000 times. Coming forward, now I had expressions under control. I had my movement under control. But something that I did not really work on was confidence. Now, eventually, I would also consider this as a part of my luck, something almost like stars had already aligned itself. Back in junior college, I did get the push and opportunities to perform on college events, and eventually, stage was not something that was very unfamiliar to me. It was not something that was very intimidating for me. Eventually, I also transformed into taking up college events, hosting a lot of cultural activities, participating a lot more in college discussions. And that is what enhanced my confidence. I think Bharatanatyam is the main cause that transformed my confidence into something the way I speak today. And as you can see, I needed a space to test all of these skills that I've learned so far, whether it is my emotions, whether it is my movement, or whether it is just using of space. So eventually, what I did was, I started reading books. So at this point in time, I want all of you to think that you're reading an actual book. While you're reading a book, there are a lot of words that you encounter, obviously. And while you're reading a book, it's not just the words that you focus on, but I'm sure as a reader, you start imagining these characters, you start imagining the scenarios, you start imagining the scenes that you're reading. Why does this happen? It happens because emotions need something visual. A vision is something that creates a lot of change, a lot of movement. And hence, you might imagine yourself that you're actually Emily in Paris. You imagine yourself that you are the character that you're watching or you're reading. Eventually, that's when I understood that when we put all of this together, whether it was my emotions, my movement, I get something called as my hand gestures, eye contact, and facial expressions. Let me show you how through Abhinaya. Without using music or even words, I could definitely tell you what I was trying to do here. I was trying to protect. I was trying to make sure that my eye contact with the learner or the child or my small kid is actually maintained and that it feels the softness that I have in my eyes at the moment. That makes me complete with my abhinaya, considering my hand gestures, eye contact, and facial expressions. Now, before I actually explain to you the next segment, I want you to actually feel it. I want you to sit accordingly and think what this makes to your body. Firstly, everybody, please sit upright, square your shoulders, take a deep breath, maybe lift your chest a little bit, and look straight. Notice how that feels. Now, soften your shoulders, relax a little bit, loosen your body. Notice how this feels. Raise your hand if the first posture actually showed you that it was an actual powerful posture. A few hands? Yes, thank you. Raise your hands if the second posture made you felt a little more welcoming and acceptable. A few hands right there. Thank you again. Here, these are the two aspects that every effective communicator needs. In Bharatanatyam, we can consider this as Tandav and Lasya. Tandav is majorly focuses on being impactful. Tandav focuses on being something that commands, something that desires assertiveness. Whereas, on the other hand, Lasya desires to be a little more persuasive. Grace and connection is what comes into the picture. Hence, through Bharatanatyam, I understood that assertiveness is something that is not just required in dance, but it's also something that is required something that is required for a public speaker to enhance. And there we go with assertiveness. Now, coming to my last segment, which is storytelling. This is where actually the Natya comes in, and that is where the Natya truly took shape for me. Natya, if you see, is storytelling in its own pure form. So when I used to compare at my college events, be a part of college activities, I used to heavily rely on scripts. I used to heavily rely on written material, flashcards. That did give me a lot of confidence. That did give me a safety net, but it did not assure me connection with the audience. Now remember, now I have the words, but I'm still not able to be alive at the moment. That's exactly when the entire process of Bharatanatyam enhanced what I now call storytelling for you. When I talk about storytelling, I would also like to give you one last demonstration, and here we go. Here, I was basically plucking a few flowers, tangling them together to make a beautiful garland, and eventually I offered it to an Indian god. However, that's one way to tell a story. I could also go ahead and pluck flowers, make a garland out of it, and wear it across my own hair. That's another way of storytelling. And that's when I realized that it's not about memorizing lines. It's about what you want the audience to feel, what you exactly want to deliver. Now, as I come to the tail end of my speech, I want to reiterate and circle back to the 7 speaking essentials or public speaking essentials that I focused upon through Bharatanatyam. Body posture, confidence, hand gestures, eye contact, facial expressions, assertiveness, and storytelling. In a country as diverse as India, what brings me to a very important question is why such an important cultural aspect or cultural identity that is so deeply rooted in all of us needs revival. Why does it need protection? Why does it need a response for something that is not being protected anymore? And that is why we come to the very end, that words aren't enough. As I conclude, because all the aspects, I believe that if anybody tries to enhance at least one of these aspects in your day-to-day life, personality development won't stay a concept to you. It will become something that you will experience. And hence, I conclude, words aren't enough, and that's how Bharatanatyam actually proves it. Thank you.